Jake, I'm giving you all control of the meeting.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jacob Spiegler, and I would like to welcome you to our 8th KM KSU webinar. I'm a graduate student in the master's program and will be one of your event facilitators over the next year. The KM KSU webinars are an open forum for anyone engaged or interested in knowledge management or knowledge sciences. In this community, we define knowledge sciences broadly and inclusively. Events and webinars are offered to expand the dialogue and also provide exposure to people and organizations who are doing great things in this area to advance ideas and to discuss challenges. We want this to be your forum, so we encourage you to propose events, suggest topics. Events, as we mentioned in our kickoff session, are not limited to presentations, but can also be open to conversations and discussions, interviews, and so on. We're receiving many very interesting suggestions, and we have volunteers for over another half dozen events. Please do keep the ideas coming. This is an open forum which operates under a Creative Commons governance model. It is also a community without formal funding, so I want to always take the time to acknowledge the contributions of our team here at Kent State, including Jana Krenzico, our Academic Program Coordinator, Nicole Stempak, our Graduate Assistant, and Denise Bedford, our Goodyear Professor of Knowledge Management. Now let me introduce our speaker for today. Giora Hadar is a knowledge manager at the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA. He has been working in knowledge management since 1994 and in his current capacity since 1999. In 2009, Mr. Hadar authored a Web 2.0 collaboration and social media strategy for the FAA. And in 2011, he analyzed various alternatives for cloud computing. He is an in-house KM subject matter expert providing strategic direction to the FAA management and can consult to the other federal agencies. From 1999 to 2003, Mr. Hadar represented the FAA at the IBM Institute for Knowledge Management. He served as the co-chair of the Federal KM Working Group from 2002 to 2004, and again from 2007 to 2008, and has been a member of the advisory board of the annual eGov KM conference since 2003. Mr. Hadar is an invited speaker at many KM conferences and workshops in the U.S. and abroad. Having been in federal service since 1980, he joined the FAA in 1988. Mr. Hadar holds a bachelor's degree in architecture and is a licensed architect in the state of Maryland. He is enrolled in the Graduate School of Economics and Business at the University of Groningen in the Netherlands as a PhD candidate in the KM program, researching intergenerational knowledge transfer. And without further ado, I'd like to transfer this over to Giora Hadar. And I would also like to mention that when it comes time to ask questions, that you can unmute yourself to ask that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Denise. As you can see, this is the subject of my research as well as my dissertation. I'm using the FAA as a case study about the 3 generations or age groups of air traffic controllers in the agency. First of all, being a government employee, I have to give you this disclaimer. Anything that I say here only represents my opinion and not the agency that I work for. And any specific products that I mention, I do not endorse them. We have approximately 2,500 controllers who are going to retire by law from their operational environment next year. So in essence, the difference between the retirement atmosphere for controllers in the FAA is quite different from all other professions in the agency, because instead of having a slow ramp down and a slow ramp up, we have this retirement cliff that faces us next year. In addition to this, obviously, we have the controllers retiring at the age of 56, and the agency is expected to hire approximately 11,500 controllers by the year 2020. This comes after the agency hired approximately 7,000 Gen Xers in 2005. The seniors controllers who are leaving are going to create a knowledge gap. And at the same time, we suspect
Giora, are you still there?
hear me again.
We can hear you now.
Okay, because I don't know what's going on. I lost the connection. Okay, I don't know where I left off, so I'll start from the beginning of the slide. The retirement of the senior controllers is going to most likely create a knowledge gap. And we also suspect that the agency is not going to have sufficient number of certified controllers to serve as OJT instructors for the incoming entry-level controllers. And at the same time, the agency already uses iPads and considering bringing iPhones under the bring your own device philosophy in order to meet the requirements of the new millennials that are interested in using their devices in the workplace. It is not going on well here. I cannot switch. My screen looks like it's frozen. Jake, I'm having a technical difficulty here.
So your screen is frozen?
Yep.
I
don't know exactly what's going on here.
Well, let's see. Is it the WebEx that's frozen or just your computer?
Okay. That's not. There is something wrong here. Oh, here we go. Okay. Can you see it now?
Actually, here, I need to give you back the presentation.
Okay. Can you see slide 5?
You need to share your desktop again, because we don't see it right now.
Hold on. Share my desktop. Okay.
We can see your. Yes, we can see your.
Wonderful. Okay. So the FAA management asked me to conduct the study because they recognize the fact that the senior controllers, most of them were born between 1946 and 64. The boomers are leaving the agency next year. The controllers I'm talking about. Gen Xers, as I said earlier, were hired around 2005. They were born between 1965 and 1980. And the millennials are the only pool available to us to hire from. And at the same time, the study was limited only to terminal services as opposed to the centers that are in the center of the country. They comprise of approximately half the controllers in the agency. The study is co-sponsored by the FAA as well as by my university, and these two professors are my, Professor Yorna is my chief advisor, and Professor Karsten is my second advisor. By the way, this particular study is part and parcel of my job. So what I'm concentrating on is examining how entry-level controllers have different attitude towards work, life, and training than from the other two generations in the workplace. And at the same time, we try to identify methods on how to accelerate the learning of the new hires because of the fact that the senior controllers are retiring next year, and we try to do that through the possible use, I should say, of mobile smart devices. So first of all, I'm sure all of you know what knowledge sharing is, and in particular case of the FAA, we try to preserve mission critical knowledge as well as provide it to the right people at the right time. So the senior controllers, in our case, need to give that mission critical knowledge to the new hires. In the agency, we use these three products that are listed here on the bottom: Yammer, SharePoint, and CQ5. The question is obviously, how do we get people out of their silos, which we define as our individual cubicles, to get out of their cubicles and move beyond the 40-foot radius of their cubicle in order to share their knowledge with other people who need to know that knowledge. Why is it important? Because we need to preserve institutional knowledge, and we need to accelerate onboarding of new hires. These three questions are at the, I should say, serve as the foundation of what was developed in the survey that was given to the controllers throughout the country. And this is a very important basis for conversation, because we need to know, how do we use knowledge, how do we use other people's knowledge, and how do other people use our own knowledge. The survey was approved by both management as well as the appropriate unions. That process took approximately 3 months. And as a matter of fact, I have to tell you a little story about that, because I had to convince one of my professors at the university that because I work in an operational environment, I could not conduct my study in a normal fashion. That first, I had to develop the research questions, then develop the hypotheses, and based on those hypotheses, I had to develop the survey. In this particular case, I had to do it in reverse because of the length of time that was required to develop the survey. And as a result of it, I had to start with a survey and then go back to develop the research questions and the hypotheses. There were 2 different types of surveys that we had to conduct, although the questions were mostly the same. The paper exercise at the FAA Academy and the 3 aeronautical schools was done, especially at the 3 aeronautical schools, because of the requirements of the Paper Reduction Act. Every time a government employee wants to conduct a survey of more than 10 non-government employees, there is a year-long process of approval, both by the department where you work, as well as the Office of Management and Budget. So we needed to circumvent that, so we went to a partner exercise. And of course, we had the online application for all the people in the FAA, and participation was strictly voluntary. As you can see, we had survey participants from 3 different sources. The 3 aeronautical colleges and university involved both students as well as faculty. The FAA Academy in Oklahoma City involved students and instructors. And we collected information from participants from 192 operational facilities around the U.S., which comprise of these 4 following categories of controllers: regular controllers, supervisors, staff specialists, as well as managers and executives. The survey contained 4 different sections. The first one was the communications section. We tried to identify the differences and similarities among the 3 age groups, the type of tools as well as sites that they went to, what they liked and what they didn't like, both actively as well as passively. The next section was a task that we developed, a planning task that obviously they did not have to carry it out, but we said to them, in case you did have to exercise that task in real life, think about it. How would you do it in collaboration with your peers? The third section had to do with training, both in the classroom as well as in the facilities, which comprises both of OJT as well as lab simulations. What did you think about it? Good, bad, or indifferent? As well as what do you think are going to be the implications in case the agency decided to bring in mobile smart devices to augment the training? And the last part, obviously, was demographics. We wanted to know everything about the people that participated, as well, as long as we kept their privacy. We complied with the privacy requirements, obviously. I apologize. Okay, so the survey goals were to get 250 participants from the academic environment, as well as 300 participants from the operational environment. And we insisted that we needed people from all 3 age groups. We have to talk somehow about the limitations of the survey, because some of them are applicable to other areas in the agency as well as elsewhere, and some are not. As I said earlier, because we have the retirement cliff facing us, other places may not be faced with the same requirement, and therefore that deadline is unique to the agency. Also, because of the fact that the survey was designed specifically for the agency and run internally by SMEs as well as by the unions, it may or may not be applicable elsewhere. So we don't know. But at the same time, we try to identify generalization as much as we could. Challenges, Xers, and even more so millennials, grew up using smart mobile devices, and they are addicted to them, they love them, and they expect them in the workplace. And the question is, how can the agency respond to the different needs and expectations of each of the generations that we hire? Now it's the millennials, and in the future will be what some people are already calling Generation 2020. There were 5 research questions that we developed based on the 3 general knowledge questions that you saw earlier. What are the differences in the way the 3 age groups communicate with each other, as well as within themselves in the workplace? How is knowledge transfer from the senior, more experienced controllers to the newbies, so to speak? What are the differences between the current cadres of controllers, the Gen Xers that were hired in 2005, and the millennials that are coming on board now in their use of smart devices, both as work as well as at home? What are the implications for the agency in introducing such smart devices as part of ATC training? And finally, what are the advantages and disadvantages for the agency to use KM to transfer mission-critical knowledge to the new hires? As I said earlier, we were looking for 250 people from academia. We actually got 246. We were looking for 300 controllers, and unfortunately, we got only 208. Fortunately for us, the professors agreed that the numbers that we had were sufficient to validate the study. We had 3 independent variables, 1 dependent variable. The independent ones are the age groups, the communication behavior within groups, and learning style of each group. And the dependent variable was gaining knowledge, which obviously the agency was very interested in. The methodology, we developed 7 hypotheses, 4 relevant to the research as well of interest to the agency, and 3 of interest to the agency, but somehow tangential to this research. Hypothesis number 1 was that the older controllers prefer fewer modes of communications as well as tools and use them less frequently than the younger controllers. The hypothesis was confirmed. We found out that boomers prefer landline phones and email, and the millennials preferred all the other 5 that were tested. What was surprising to us, that although general impression and popular press claims that millennials, when they sit even knee to knee touching each other, they prefer to text to each other. In this particular case, in the agency, they do prefer face-to-face communications. And we have to go by the assumptions that because the new hires are very eager to master air traffic control as quickly as possible, that they are interested in getting FaceTime with their instructors as much as possible, and master the field as quickly as possible. Hypothesis 2, older air traffic controllers search longer and share less information than do youngsters. This was rejected. Number 3, older air traffic controllers find classroom instructions, materials, and computer simulation less effective than do younger ones. This hypothesis was confirmed, but again, we found a surprise here that because of the same reason that I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, millennials prefer classroom lectures because they want to master the information as quickly as possible. Number 4, older air traffic controllers found laboratory simulation in online databases less effective than do younger controllers. That was confirmed. Number 5, to transfer mission critical knowledge in the FAA, older air traffic controllers use KM principles less than do younger ones. This was neither confirmed nor rejected, and the data analysis showed no impact by the different age groups, which means that each age groups reacted more or less the same. The next one, older air traffic controllers catalog and store information about tasks more than do younger ones. This was again neither confirmed nor rejected. And the last one, older controllers disseminate information about tasks less readily than do younger controllers. This was neither confirmed nor rejected. Conclusions. Millennials obviously are more open to adoption of new technologies, both at work as well as at home. And they also desire to work in teams and share their knowledge. Gen Xers are like the sandwich generation. They share the traits of both the generation above them as well as below them. Boomers are the slowest to embrace technological changes, but I must put the caveat here because some individuals in each group of the 3 that we studied do not fit this description or any description. So it's very difficult to generalize. We need to creating comprehensive knowledge bases will enable younger controllers access to mission critical knowledge through the use of best practices and lessons learned, as well as be able to learn as quickly as possible from others. And there is a critical link between ATC training, and KM. There were several recommendations that I intend to give to the agency. We need to create a COP for helping new hires adapt and learn as quickly as possible about the needs of the workplace. And at the same time, this will help them get on with their onboarding as quickly as possible. Capitalize on the lessons that millennials learned from playing video games that will become applicable to learning. For those of you who don't know, a lot of people think of air traffic control as like playing a video game, except obviously there is a lot of safety involved, so don't think of it exactly as a video game. But we do need to exploit the unique aspects of learning associated with serious games in order to enhance the training of new hires. We need to embrace social media in the workplace. We also need to exploit microblogging in order to enhance exchange of knowledge in the agency. If we had something like Twitter behind the firewall, we could float a question and then get the question answered within possibly minutes, if not seconds. So it will speed up sharing of knowledge. And we need to establish formal mentoring to enhance the leadership skills and give new hires face time with leaders, which they desire so much. We need to embrace soft skill mentoring to teach millennials about the organizational culture. And culture is an extremely important issue in the controller community. Excuse me. All the controllers are very suspicious of new hires, and the new hires need to get used to the culture and be embraced by the community as quickly as possible, because if they are not going to be able to become effective controllers. We need to introduce cross-generational mentoring because we need to expose mixed teams of intergenerational teams, I should say, to the strength of each generation. So we can have older people teach the younger ones about the organizational structure, about the organizational culture, and the younger ones can teach the older ones about the technology. We need, obviously, to also investigate, is it possible for the agency to augment air traffic control training by delivering content through the use of serious games or mobile smart devices? The question here is, can we reduce simulation into a small snippets that can be delivered on the iPads or the iPhone that will allow people, after they leave the lab, since they cannot take the computer under their arm, if there are snippets available to them on smart devices, they can take it into the hallway. They can talk to their colleagues, reinforce the learning by discussing the issues, and even better yet, be able to take those small snippets with them on their smart device home to internalize the information. And finally, what are the implications for future training of the preference of millennials who participate in this study to both classroom lectures as well as face-to-face communications as compared to the general population. Now I'll open up the floor for questioning.
Please be aware that you might need to unmute yourself to ask a question.
Mark, this is Denise. Did you want to go ahead and ask your question, or would you like me to ask it of Giora?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, go ahead.
I guess at the very beginning, and you probably alluded to it through the presentation, there was a comment in your problem statement that the people are heavy users of social media. And I just asked a quick question, is why is that considered a problem? Or is that merely a statement or an observation that you felt was relevant to your findings?
It was not a problem. I'm sorry if I presented it as a problem. It's just an observation that the younger ones are heavy users of social media. And at the same time, it is a challenge for the agency because under current FAA regulations, it is frowned upon. Until a few months ago, we were blocked, for example, from going into sites like LinkedIn and Facebook. And slowly but surely, we are being allowed to do more and more participation in such sites. Let me remind the audience, and obviously it's showing my age, when the first Windows environment, Windows 1.0 was introduced by Microsoft, a couple of games were introduced as part of that environment, and the IT departments in many organizations immediately turned those games off. And that was, at the same time, the best way to teach people how to use the mouse. So I think the reaction here to social media is very similar to what happened in the early 80s. But it's not really a problem from my point of view. It's more of an observation, as you suggested, as well as a challenge.
And I think that as a quick follow-on, I think that I can understand where in certain operational scenarios it would be considered a distraction. But at the same time, if you can figure out from an operational perspective, I also think that it would be a very quick way for you to provide what I would consider decision aids or additional criteria that would help resolve possibly a conflict that's immediately in front of the controller. So again, that's going to take some very fine-tuning. And I think that at some point what you want to do is introduce, like you said, the microblogging or the micro-mentoring into your simulations to see how it plays out.
Okay, let me try to put what you just suggested into some kind of perspective. In the operational air traffic control environment in the FAA, we don't have any desktop computers because we need to make sure that the controllers concentrate on the operational environment because they are looking at radar screens. However, each one of the operational facility in the break rooms have desktop computers, which are like kiosks that all the controllers can go in and they sign in just to get their payroll information and things of this nature, but they are not really used during the operational environment. So if they need to use social media in the operational environment, I suspect that will be frowned upon because that needs to be tested against the utmost requirement for safety.
Understand completely.
Okay. I guess there's one reason why the FAA is considered to be the safest air traffic control system in the globe.
Giora, if you open up your chat window, we've actually got a couple questions that have been posted there.
Giora, I can help read some of these out for you. Dane Bellew.
I'm looking at
Okay.
Mark. Okay, I see Mark. Okay, let me see the next one.
Dane has a question just below Mark.
I don't see that. Maybe
All
you
right,
can read it. Because I lost some of it when I lost the connection.
Let me read out Dane's questions. Actually, Mark had a second one, which was that, pardon me, he wondered why the controllers were suspicious of new hires. Were there trust issues?
The controllers are cliquish in a way, and they want to make sure that they accept into their environment people who are like them culturally. So there is always the issue of how do you accept people who are different from you in age. It's not a diversity issue, but it is an age issue. You have to remember that each one of the three age groups has its own likes, dislikes, prejudices, and so on and so forth. So that's why I said the younger controllers need to learn about the organizational culture as quickly as possible, and they need to be mentored to make sure that they know how to penetrate this cliquish environment. I wouldn't call it suspicion per se, but it's just they want to be comfortable with them. I can give you an example even about me. When I went to 15 different facilities to talk to controllers, there was a senior controller that went with me because they even used their own language. And the senior controller was assigned to me to make sure that I did not step on my own tongue, so to speak. Because if I used language which was unfamiliar to them, or if I used anything that they didn't want to hear, it was going to ruin my research. So they had to protect me from myself, so to speak.
Here we have some questions from Dane Bellew.
Okay.
Dane asked, given the hypothesis rejections of number 3 and number 4 and the slow tech adoption by boomers, the mentoring program seems critical to achieving knowledge transfer. Can you comment on what that program may look like? And then she updates that with confirmation versus rejection.
Okay. Let me look at the hypotheses. The assumption was that older air traffic controllers are used to using classroom instruction, and the question was, of course, what differences were there among the three age groups in their relationship to classroom material, computer simulations, and online materials. And number 4, again, similar. So both of these were confirmed, so I don't understand, maybe I'm missing the question.
Barbara, did you want to go ahead and ask the question? I may not have read it quite correctly. I'm sorry,
yes.
Dane.
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so my question was, the confirmation of hypothesis 3 and 4 seem to indicate that the older workers found classroom instruction materials and simulation materials less effective. And so that, that led me to my question of understanding, what the emphasis was programmatically to do the knowledge transfer, and it sounds like that was going to be an emphasis on the mentoring program.
Well, we definitely need an emphasis on mentoring program, and I said in my conclusions and recommendations that I'm going to submit to the agency that we need mentoring both from the old to the young, as well as from the young to the old. As each generation or each age group has its own strengths and weaknesses, if we look at the general popular opinion that older people are less inclined to embrace new technologies, and the youngsters do, the youngsters who are more tech savvy can teach the older ones how to use technology. The flip side of that, the older ones have been in the agency as much as 25 or more years, and they know about the organizational culture. They know where to go to get information because they know a lot of people, their network is extended and extensive in the agency. So they can teach the youngsters where to go to get information. Who are the people who are the go-to people who know everything that they need to know, what they require to know. Who are the managers that they need to befriend? Who are the union people that they need to befriend, and things of this nature. So there is mentoring on both sides of the aisle. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Barbara, you had some questions. Would you like to go and go ahead and ask them? Let me pose Barbara's questions on her behalf.
I see one. Any effort to look at the potential of gamification, use of game elements in non-game environment of learning at the FAA. This is actually one of the issues that I studied as part of my research. I have a section in one of the chapters about future trends. I interviewed a senior executive in the Department of Defense, and we had about an hour-long conversation about the need to augment training with the use of serious games, as well as augment the same training through the use of mobile smart devices. The department is looking at games as a means of teaching the soldiers, and they are the millennials, obviously, the new ones coming in, because these people grew up using video games, and research has stated that people who play video games for more than 20 hours a week have a different attitude towards learning than people who play video games less that time. I'm not talking only about action games, I'm talking about other games also. And in the case of air traffic controllers, because of the fact that we need to learn how to separate planes that are represented by dots on the screen, and the dots are surrounded by all the information about the plane that the controller has to know, like the aircraft identification, the if it's a light plane, medium, or heavy plane, the King of the Rain, and to Disney, they need to learn how to keep the planes separate in a safety distance, So games, or I should say serious games, is a wonderful methodology to introduce into this environment. However, the agency is not there yet. As part of my research, I don't know if all of you are familiar with the MITRE Corporation. It's a company of mostly of engineers and scientists that supports mostly the public sector. Excuse me. They developed a series of games for the FAA, but they are all PC-based. And I asked the question, why couldn't these games be taken the one extra step of being converted into mobile apps? It's not done yet, but this is one of the suggestions that I'm making to the agency. So yes, I agree 100% that we need to use serious games